Justice Aisha Malik became the first female Supreme Court judge in Pakistan nearly 75 years after the birth of this country. And only recently, Sabat Rizvi has become the first secretary of the Lahore High Court Bar Association, almost 130 years in history. So we are really inspired to be sitting next to Faiza Kapadia Raffay, who is the legal head and company secretary of HUBCO, Pakistan's first and biggest power plant. So Faiza, what are some of the challenges women face in obtaining leadership positions?
So I think our society generally, when women are hired, the questions usually besides the qualifications are asked, are you married? Do you have kids? Are you pregnant? And these are some of the considerations which are actually taken, by an employer to see, despite the fact that she may have the requisite qualifications for the job. And that is puts some barriers into when you want to pursue a career. And I think that is not only at organization level, but even in a society and on a personal level, I think you're brought up in a certain environment where it's seen that girls should not be too ambitious, because they have to eventually have a family. They can't spend too much time away from their kids. They have to so that kind of makes it difficult for them also to they feel that maybe they can't do it. And it's like an obstacle to actually, to go to the next level or to climb up the ladder, which is, I think, so it has to be a mind shift change. It has to start from the grassroots level. And I think companies now, slowly but surely, are embracing equity and are providing the necessary tools for women who want to pursue careers. Going forward, even though they have families and kids, they give them that platform to be able to at least pursue it further.
So how have societal attitudes changed for accepting and advocating women in leadership positions over time?
I think there has been a shift. It's been a slow shift. We do see, like in my profession, you've already mentioned Justice Aisha Malik has attained the highest, she's become the Supreme Court judge, which is, it was much awaited, but it has happened. There are a lot of women in different positions, in C-level positions, who have worked their way up and who have actually, it just shows that they've been in my own profession, let's say, there are more litigators. At one time when I used to go to the lower courts, I used to be seen, it was a novelty, and people will look at me like, why am I over here and what am I doing? But now there is much more, women who are litigators in the high courts, in the Supreme Court. Generally, even our institutions have become mindful of having women and the balance that women create and the diverse opinions that they have, and they bring that into various organizations. It's become mandatory now for a female to be on the board of directors. So while generally it is, there are certain, there used to be myths that there are some positions which can only be handled or managed by a man. I think that has changed, and that has actually brought about a lot more. When you see women in leadership roles, they are an inspiration as well.
What are some of the most effective strategies in increasing the number of women in leadership positions?
I think there has been a change. If you see post-COVID, I think work from home has become a norm now, that a lot of companies are offering their employees. Smart work has actually become a regular feature, and that has been able to give the employees, not only women but even men, to be able to spend family time and juggle between both personal and professional commitments. And I think inclusivity, they have brought about changes. There is another big milestone which is that to provide a safe and secure environment, a work environment for women, which has been one of the stigmas that we have in our society, that women should not go because it's a different environment, and it's not the home environment, and we don't know what type of people there are. But now you have harassment laws, you have anti-harassment laws, which has actually given women a platform, and it's there and everyone knows about it. So people are mindful that way. There are companies now providing newborns and new mothers, I would say, with the daycare facilities. For instance, HUBCO is one of the, I think I would say, a forward-looking company that way. It has, it gives daycare expenses to, new mums, and they don't have to, stay back at home and they, just drop out of the workforce.
You need to give women safe places to work in, and you need to, so that families and other support systems that they belong to are also quite comfortable, and the woman herself is comfortable that she has a support system that will enable her to move further. So how can women leaders best advocate for themselves and for their organizations?
So I think one of the things which companies can do, or we as women can do, is that to ensure that we have, hire a certain percentage, like at least 30% of your workforce should be women. That way, a lot more women can come back into the work stream. A lot of people, sometimes they have dropped out and they want to come back into the workforce. So that way, that gives them that support to be able to come and work in places. Again, to make them to give them a decision-making roles. For instance, now a board of directors also, as I mentioned earlier, has females now mandatory to have one female on the board. And I think it's important for companies to be able to make proper and balanced decisions. I think it's important that the different perspectives and diverse views are all brought in.
So I think what you're saying is that it is important to enable more women to join the workforce through these various strategies, and it is also important to empower them by making them part of the decision-making process.
Yes.
So what can be done to ensure that women are paid fairly and equitably, especially in the fact that if you're in a leadership position, what should you do?
I think it's important to bring about a policy change, and you need to have equal salary for both. So when you are hiring as well, when you see the merits, the qualifications, the experience, so I think those all need to be uniformly decided, rather than just giving more leverage to a man versus a woman doing the same role or in the same role, because that has to be brought in across the board, right from hiring levels, organizations, institutions. I think equal salary is very important, and it has to be merit-based purely.
How can we ensure that gender equity is prioritized at all levels of the organization, from the hiring to the promotions?
Organizations need to be forward-looking. I think that there should be a clear communication and a vision that they want and they bring in women into the workforce. They can do that on multiple fronts. They can actually, for instance, like a company like HUBCO already understands that it has its plants at remote locations. It's not always easy for women to be in those locations. So to be able to provide them with certain tools and measures, security, flexibility, these are all important, safety. So I think these are all things which they're mindful of, and it will enable, and it has enabled women to be part of those remote locations.
Okay, so obviously it's very important to know the role of men. What is their role in advancing gender equity in the workplace?
Men also need to, I think, bring in the inclusivity factor. I think providing, the women the right to take part in decision making, to be mindful of the fact that women do multitask. They do have families. They do have personal commitments and professional commitments. I don't think it should be seen as a weakness if you are given any flexibility in terms of your work hours, because there is a certain professionalism as well, and I think people are mindful of that. And if you deliver, and if you are delivering and there is no issue with the way you're performing and doing your work, I think overall that should not be an impediment.
So what do you think are some of the most common misconceptions about women in leadership?
I think, I mean, there are quite a few myths. There are women having kids, raising the kids, that's seen as an impediment again, that, she won't be able to take up any, won't be able to develop to the next level or take up a leadership role. Women are not interested in pursuing leadership, roles as well. Women don't support fellow women who are working under them. So I think more or less these are the myths and the misconceptions, which they aren't, because I personally have had two female bosses who have actually been inspiring, encouraging, supportive. So I think that those are a few things.
How important is it to focus on well-being, and what is it that you do, and how would you advise other women?
I think well-being is key, because if you don't have the energy, or if you're not looking after yourself, you can't deliver either professionally or personally. So, for me, I think fitness is important, and I make sure that at least 3 times a week, I take out that 1 hour, and and that's my time. And even though you're exhausted with the rest of the day, but at least that is somewhere that you can you have that downtime, and that provides that. So it could be different things for different people. Take up a hobby, walk, or painting or whatever. But I think it's important to have your mental balance, and it brings about positive energy across, like within your team, within the organization, and obviously in your work.
Okay, thank you for being part of our Leader series. It has been really inspirational and insightful, and I think it has opened the doors, showing women that there's so many more opportunities available in career advancement and in leadership roles in Pakistan.
Thank you. I think I take my inspiration also, I must add, from my mother,
Yes.
who has worked throughout, and she has managed, of course, with 2 kids, and has been a force actually in her profession. And I think that having such an inspiring parent, and both parents, but she has managed after my father passed away, and I think that has been something which has given that support and the encouragement to go to the next step.
Yeah, I think it's important for women as mothers to be role models for their children as well. That really does encourage the next generation to have the confidence to step up.